Welcome to the New Little Life podcast. My name is Allison. I'm a lactation consultant, a breast pump expert, and a mom of 3 little boys. Here on the podcast, we talk with real moms and experts about breastfeeding and pumping. This podcast is designed to help you feel supported by other moms who are doing exactly what you're doing, to get tips and tricks on breastfeeding, and learn how to efficiently navigate pumping while going back to work. Okay, here we are again on another episode in season 2 with the New Little Life podcast. Today's episode, we've been trying to coordinate this for a while, and so I'm really excited to be able to finally have this conversation with Elisabeth. And I'd like to introduce you to her first, and then we'll bring her on so she can share her story, which is really cool. We haven't had someone with quite her experience and expertise on, so this will be fun. Elisabeth Anderson-Sierra She's a certified lactation counselor, and she's BabyBuddha's director of lactation services. She's played an instrumental role in optimizing BabyBuddha's small but mighty breast pump, so it's the most portable, effective, hands-free option on the market. She also has a rare condition, hyper-lactation syndrome, which results in her pumping around 200 ounces of breast milk a day, which is about 10 times the average a mother typically pumps. Not only does this provide a unique perspective and wealth of expertise when it comes to breastfeeding and pumping, but it's also led Elisabeth to donate 350,000 ounces of breast milk to date. Welcome to the podcast, Elisabeth. Such an amazing bio. I can't wait to talk to you about this.
Yes, thank you, Allison. Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here. I'm so excited to chat with you. And I also just want to send over a kudos. I love your podcast. I love what you're doing online, and I love the support that you're putting out there.
Thank you. I have a real passion for moms that are pumping and using a breast pump. And so any information we can share with them is what I love to do. So you've got to tell me, can you just start at the beginning? Like, first baby, started lactating. Like, where does your story really begin?
Yes. So I got pregnant in 2014 with my firstborn. And at the time, I was a full-time college student and in full-time college hours, I think 20 plus hours at the time. And I was studying emergency medicine. I was getting my EMT certification and was always at classes and whatnot. And around maybe like my 13th week of pregnancy, I had kind of started leaking milk. It was a weird feeling because when you're pregnant, your body changes, right? And I was just really hyper aware of like development in the breast tissue area. I think on a previous podcast, there was talk about size does not matter when it comes to how much you're producing. I was definitely an A cup or less. And yet I produce enormous volumes. Definitely over the years and with pregnancies, I think that, I've become more voluptuous, but I think it's mostly just duct work and not like fatty tissue. But so in my pregnancy, I felt like my body changing and I started leaking milk. And usually when, things were focused around like adrenaline things or whatnot. So if we're running emergency drills and whatnot, I kind of just got like a hot flash and like was getting let down, and I didn't know what it was at the time. I was super embarrassed. I didn't know what my body was doing. I didn't know about breast pads. I didn't know, I was like, maybe this is just normal, and kind of kept it to myself. I guess I'm very much an introvert, and I don't talk about, bodily function too much or whatnot. I was kind of raised in a bubble, and I've broken out of that bubble since then. But at the time, I just didn't know what was going on with my body. And when I had my checkups with my midwife, I would tell her like, hey, this is really uncomfortable and I'm soaking my shirts. And what do I do? Because at the time I had just been stuffing washcloths into my bra to kind of like catch all of the drainage. I didn't know that there were milk catchers. I didn't know about anything.
Still while you were pregnant?
Yes. So
wow. Okay.
yes. So antenatally, like started around 13 weeks. And my midwife was just like, oh, this could be normal. And she, encouraged me not to pump or anything like that. But if it got too uncomfortable, I could do hand expression. And so I started doing that because it was very uncomfortable. I was becoming engorged. It was painful. It was uncomfortable, and I was pregnant. So that kept, going throughout, week after week after week of pregnancy. And, as the body kept changing, the volume just kept getting more and more. So then I started Googling and looking into, pumps, or, what was out there that could accommodate, because hand expression was taking a long time. And I was really just nervous about pumping because my midwife had precautioned against it during pregnancy. But I did find a hand pump. I got like the Medela hand pump. And that's what I used. Usually, like, I would be driving in the car to my college classes, kind of pumping away on this hand pump to get as much out before I got to class, so I was not leaking so bad in class. And so that continued on. At my appointments, my midwife would ask, are you still leaking? Like all of that kind of stuff. And I said, yep, I am. But we never really talked about volume. We never really talked about how much. I just told her that I was, expressing to get relief or comfort, and not really about like how much was coming out. So the problem wasn't identified at first because I was really shy about what was happening with my body, and it was my first pregnancy. I had no idea. So after the birth of my firstborn, my midwife came over to my home. She does home visits and whatnot. And she was wanting to see how it was going with breastfeeding. And I told her that I was, pumping. And she just wanted to come see and make sure that I wasn't overdoing it, or make sure that latch was good, all of that kind of stuff. So she came over, and I had done some research. And so I was properly storing breast milk at that time. Which really, it was a ton of more like colostrum. And I think that, in the last appointments with my pregnancy, I think I had mentioned some numbers that I was storing away, and she would I would say, 20 ounces, this morning, and then, maybe 30 ounces at the end of the day, kind of thing. And I think that she thought I was talking about milliliters.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. She probably
ounces,
did not comprehend. Yeah. Oh, you said ounces, you meant milliliters.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would say ounces, and she would think milliliters. This is my first baby, that's just not possible, right? So when she came over, my entire refrigerator freezer, which is like a top to bottom, like side door one, was completely full. Like, I had taken out the ice maker, everything. And then I had purchased an industrial outside, like, garage type freezer that was huge, and it was just about full. So I think at that time, all combined, it had held, I think, 4,000 or 5,000 ounces of milk already. And so she was just blown away, and she was like, I thought you were talking about milliliters. This is not normal. And I was like, I didn't know. I thought something was weird, but I was just, I'm so embarrassed. Everything was so, I was just raised like so, conservative, and we just didn't talk about nursing or lactation or periods or anything like that. And I was just so shy and embarrassed. But then after, realizing like this is not normal and like all that sort of stuff, I just, started continuing learning about it and getting my experience out there. And over time, I've become a lot more just transparent, and I would say I'm an open book now. Like, there's no topics off limits. Like, we can talk about it all. I probably heard it all, or tried it all, or seen it all, or done it all. Because I think like the last 8 years of my life has definitely been centered around milk production, and not by choice. I was, I think, officially diagnosed with hyperlactation syndrome at about maybe 3 months postpartum with my firstborn. Um, and it was just something that my clinics had never seen. We have a learning hospital in the Portland area, and it's like a science university. And I was referred over there for some appointments from like endocrinology or whatnot. And I'm still like involved in studies with them so that they can learn more and develop studies and whatnot about this kind of condition, because there's like nothing out there on it. So excited to be participating in that because I
Yeah.
know that I'm not alone. I know that what my body does is not normal. I always, I tell moms the grass is not greener. Like, please don't compare. It I know it seems so amazing to get, maybe 40 or 50 ounces per pumping session, but that is just not normal. It's not achievable. It's not attainable. Like, it is not goals. It is not, it is just not. But I have to also be true to myself and say that it's not normal, but it is my normal. This is very much like my life. This is very much like a disability. It's not necessarily a supply and demand with my body. It is very much hormone driven. Um, my body produces a lot of extra prolactin, and I get scans every single year to check for pituitary tumors and whatnot. But I don't have one, and my prolactin levels are just off the charts, like completely off the charts. And that's really what kind of drives hyperlactation for me. Usually it's coupled with a pituitary tumor, but my pituitary gland is swollen. It's like enlarged. That was the thing of note with mine. But other than that, like, I'm healthy otherwise.
Yeah. So you would probably know better than me, but do you know how many people are affected by this hyperlactation syndrome? Like in general, can you give us kind of a ballpark on how often this happens? Because again, for anyone listening, this is very different than oversupply. Like you can
Yeah.
create an oversupply. You can even kind of have tendencies toward an oversupply where you have extra milk that your baby doesn't need. This is not the same thing. So, like Elisabeth said, this started for her in pregnancy, and this was not created by supply and demand. This is just a hyper. She's making so much milk despite, I mean, I'm sure even if you stopped pumping or pumped once a day, you would still make these copious amounts of milk just based on your diagnosis. Is that correct?
That is correct. It kind of doesn't matter, like, any of the typical things that you might see out there to kind of slow down your supply or stop it, or even the medications that are out there. Or I've done a lot of studies with my doctors, and even things that are not like FDA approved for milk cessation. I have tried to, to be able to stop, but it just doesn't work for me. I have been pumping for over 8 years now, almost 8.5 years, through my pregnancies as well. I did nurse occasionally, but really switched over to more like exclusive pumping. But hyperlactation syndrome affects, I think that the the hospital was saying maybe it's like 1 in 500,000 or something like that. It is extremely rare because there is also, like you said, there's oversupply, and that could mean anything from, anything above what your baby is eating to, 100 ounces, 150 ounces per day or whatnot. But the difference is what is hormone driven and not supply and demand kind of induced.
Yeah. Okay. Perfect. So, did your pregnancies slow down your milk production at all, or has it stayed pretty consistent since that first baby that you had?
I would say that my supply did slow down a bit during pregnancy. And I've experienced 2 full-term pregnancies since my firstborn. Um, and with that second pregnancy that I had, my supply, I kind of like halved. So, but I also was producing maybe about 100 and like 30 ounces a day with my firstborn. And then that increased to about 100 and maybe like 70 ounces a day with my second born. And now with my third, I'm hovering like usually around that 200 mark. Sometimes it's more, sometimes it's a little bit less. It does fluctuate with some of like the normal life things like stressors or severe dehydration or like maybe not eating enough or that sort of thing. It's a lot to keep up with. But I did experience some decrease during pregnancy, usually it would cut in half, which was really nice. It was kind of makes me want to stay pregnant forever because that's kind of been the only real relief that I've had for the past 8 years. But it also did cause problems. Hyper-lactation is riddled with problems, and we actually wanted our third about 2 years after our second born, and now there's a 6-year age gap in between my second and my third. And I had been trying for several years to have this last piece of our family puzzle. And because of hyperlactation and the prolactin levels, it kind of canceled out the progesterone that's needed to sustain a pregnancy. And I get my healthcare through the VA. I'm a military veteran. And they don't really do anything to support,
No, they don't.
fertility or pregnancy. Yeah, they'll refer you out, but you're still also waiting months and months and months. And then we went through COVID, so everything was kind of shut down for years. So I experienced many losses, very early losses, over the past couple years until I figured out at home with some at-home tests that have been developed recently that my progesterone was just very low. And once I was able to get a prescription for that and happened to get it right when I was also pregnant, I had no problem getting pregnant. It was staying pregnant. That was the problem. So once I added in progesterone, then I now have a beautiful baby boy.
Oh, congratulations too. He's not that old, and I'm really excited for you and that you were able to make that work. Because my mind, as a nurse and having been in the clinic with a lot of people, just thinking about all these hormones, and your story makes total sense to me that this is such a difficult thing to manage, this hormone-driven milk supply. I'd be really curious to know what are some of the other struggles that you've encountered with this hyperlactation or maybe how solutions that you found to manage it, anything like that.
Yes. So I would have to go back to the very beginning again, just to say, like, I have kind of always been a giver. So previously to having kids, I was, very like on the dot for milk donation. So I think it was like 126 days or something like that, I would go in and donate blood to the Red Cross. And once you're pregnant, you can't do that, right? And so I was kind of just like, well, now what do I like now? How do I give back or whatnot? And because I was also expressing and saving all of that milk, I was like, okay, well, what can I do with all of this? And that's when Facebook groups were still just babies as far as moms connecting and learning about, breastfeeding and pumping and milk sharing and all of that kind of stuff. Because previously everything had been in person. And but I did connect with some groups and I started to learn about things and gather all of the tips and then implement them. But I learned about milk donation and I was like, this is perfect. I would love to do this. I also knew that breastfeeding was going to be important to me. It was something that I wanted to do, that I was determined to do. And once I put my mind to something, I give it 120,000%. So it was very much like, I'm doing this. I'm doing all the research during pregnancy. I didn't really take any classes other than like maybe a birthing class with a couple of breastfeeding classes in there. But that I really feel like that didn't really set me up for any kind of success. But largely due to having hyperlactation, and it's just not the norm. So going all the way back to that, like learning about milk donation and being so determined to be successful at breastfeeding and pumping was kind of like the starting point, the launch pad for what I wanted to do. But then when I discovered that I had hyperlactation syndrome, and after the birth of my daughter, because I hadn't really experienced any issues really previously, like prior to giving birth, but afterwards, the whatever I was producing tripled, and it was just a lot. And then you add a baby into that, and then you add like trying to nurse when you're so engorged, and when you try and latch your baby, it's like waterboarding your baby. It was miserable for me. It was miserable for her. You would get let down on the other side. Her outfit would be soaked in milk. I would wake up in puddles of milk. And it was just, I'm just thinking about it. It's just miserable.
Yeah,
And
I was gonna ask if you were able
sticky.
to nurse your babies because I'm imagining this much milk would be very difficult for a baby to manage. So that's interesting to kind of hear you relive that experience. I can totally picture what is
Yeah.
happening there and how frustrating and exhausting that might have been for you.
Yes. So I have it figured out now. I didn't have it figured out then. But it was a trial and error process of just needing, and it was so stressful. I had to pump before I could nurse. And then like I wanted to nurse. And so pumping and being done with that prior to when your baby might be hungry was such a vicious cycle. I was, if I wasn't done pumping and my baby she had now gone through the hunger cues and was crying, I was just like, well, how can I'm still pumping. I can't nurse her yet. I had to be basically completely done pumping and then I could nurse. And I also have, because my volume is so large, I have very much like the differences of fore milk and hind milk. I know that there's some people out there that say that doesn't exist. It's a night and day for me. I have
Yeah.
shades of milk during a pump session. And so if I were to just nurse without pumping, or if I had pumped recently, but not too recently, she would just get fore milk and then she would have explosive green diapers. There would be no hind milk in there because she would get so full on the fore milk that, she wouldn't get that fatty, amazing hind milk. So, I mean, there was just so much that's just like one little tiny thing of like so many things that go into it. And then you talk about all of the bottles and the pump parts, and I used to think of it as, or I think of it now as kind of, it was kind of like the realm, everything that is involved with it exclusively pumping and trying to nurse, because you have to maintain all of your equipment, you have all of the bottles and everything that you need to wash. And then because of the hyperlactation, I mean, I think any mom should do this, but get your blood test done and make sure you're not deficient in anything. And I have to take so many supplements, just your normal stuff, just your prenatal, but also calcium and iron and magnesium and zinc and literally everything individually as well, because my body needs to get it constantly throughout the day. One, prenatal is just not going to cut it, and your body can only absorb so much. But hyperlactation is it like when your body makes milk, it will pull the resources from your body to make the milk, like no matter what. So when you don't have control over that and it's a huge volume, it's kind of just like, I felt like my chest was just leaching from me all day, and I could feel it. I could feel when milk was being made, or if there was some kind of stimulation, like my baby crying or smelling her or something like that. I literally could feel the milk being made. It's the weirdest feeling ever. It's very uncomfortable also. And then like immediately like let down and you're soaked kind of thing. So so there's that. So I spend a lot of, funds on equipment and supplements and milk bags and anything that you can think of that is needed. I'm also pretty hard on my equipment because I am pumping so much. Like I might go through a pumping bra in maybe like 2 or 3 weeks because I'll wear holes through it because of the hand massage and everything that I'm doing. So in addition, over the last 8 years, I've also experienced almost anything that you can think of, from mastitis. I at least get it at least like once a year, or milk blebs, or cracked nipples, or like splitting nipples where there's like cracks all around the nipple and it just feels like your whole nipple is going to fall off, to maybe like I nursed my baby and she had teeth and maybe I got bit. And so that was just an open, wound essentially.
Yeah.
And then you still have to pump like no matter what. And I've been hospitalized several times because of dehydration or mastitis. It's just, if I can't stay on top of this like essential kind of self-care, it's not really self-care, but like essential things for my body, I will end up in the hospital. So
is there
it's
any
not
end in
fun.
sight? Like what happens when your little ones are done, or you're done donating or whatever? Like how does this end? Do you know really?
There are a couple of options. It's been amazing the last almost 8 years now, working with a team up at this hospital. And, there are a couple of options. There are some like drastic kind of medication routes that we could take or try. But that kind of, those come with pretty adverse side effects. So
Yeah.
I'm not exactly kind of leaning that direction. I mean, they are severe side effects. So, and it's never been done before. So I don't know how I feel about that. But then, potentially I also might have to get like a double mastectomy to just remove the milk duct tissue. And that's kind of maybe the only route that I might, end up having to take. I haven't really talked about it too much with anyone or anything, because that also just seems so sad to me.
Yeah.
And I just had a baby, so I have some time to think about
Yeah.
it. But realistically, there's not very many options out there, and all of them they come with risks
Yeah.
and loss.
Yeah.
So
I know. It'll be a whole new step for you. It's amazing how much milk you've been able to donate so far. I'm sure you hear that all the time just because these numbers are so impressive. And I know I've seen, like little documentaries and world records and things that you've set, which is really cool. Can you talk to us a little bit about the process of donating and what that's been like for you?
yes, so from the very beginning, after my midwife came over and saw all this milk, and she was like, "What are you going to do with it?" And I said, "I have no idea, but my husband says that we can't get any more freezers." He has since changed his mind,
I was
and
going
I
to say,
have,
how many
I
do you
think,
have
two more.
now? Yeah.
Yep. I have 2 more full-size freezers, so I have a total of 5 now at my house,
Whoa.
that I constantly rotated out for donation. Um, and so at the very beginning, I started giving it to my midwives to take back to their clinic, and they would give it to new moms. And because milk is pretty expensive unless your insurance covers it. It is I personally would not be able to afford it for my little one. And typically, up until recently, I would say insurances, rarely covered it. I
Yeah.
think they're getting better about it, but it's still just, it's not feasible for the majority, or maybe even like, it's just not feasible. It's too expensive. So I was giving it to the midwives on a regular basis, and then they would also connect me to maybe some of the recipients, and I would donate more long term for them. And then I heard about milk banking and went through the process of that, which is very strict for very good reason. I did donate to a milk bank that specifically supplies micro preemies, and that would be
Oh,
like the most strict process that I went through.
yeah.
And it was amazing to kind of like be a part of that and give to that. I think that after a couple of years of doing that, I kind of got a little like I you pump for so long and you give for so long, you kind of just your cup is empty a little bit, and you want more. You need to fill it. You need some like dopamine, you need some gratification, or I don't know, but I definitely started to feel like I needed to see the recipients that the milk was going to, because honestly, pumping all day and dealing with this, and bagging the milk, and it's basically a full-time job.
Yeah.
um it
Mhm.
was like I was really digging deep and searching for, just more, just more from the whole experience, because there's just not a lot of positives to it.
Yeah.
So I did, donate to milk banks primarily in the beginning, and then I switched over to just a lot of like mom to mom donation, or a lot of special situations like surrogacy. Maybe the surrogate didn't want to pump after the birth, and so I would get connected with them, or maybe same-sex couples. Or one of my favorite donation stories was to a father and his son in Puerto Rico. His wife died shortly after giving birth, and
Mm.
my husband is Puerto Rican. I think my daughter was 1. It was my second born, Sophia. We had traveled to Puerto Rico to visit family, and I had all of this milk there, and I was like, I don't want to bring it back. It was coolers full. Um, and so I left it with a family member who also had a young one and could use some extra like supply on hand. But what ended up happening is she connected with a pediatrician there, who then connected her with this father who was purchasing milk bank from the United States at an astronomical amount and having it shipped overnight. It was just not feasible, but his baby was not thriving on any formula options. And he had just
Wow.
lost his wife, and he was terrified of losing his son. And so all of that milk was given to him. And then I was just like, I need to keep sending him. He needs more. So about every 3 weeks or so, I would ship an enormous cooler of milk to Puerto Rico. Um, and I got his son to over a year on breast milk, and he is thriving to this day. And I get to see
Oh,
him every time I go to Puerto Rico to visit family. So it was one of my favorite stories. But that is the kind of thing that really just brings me joy, that makes me feel like, it gives me like the energy to, I guess, to kind of like keep going, that it's making a difference, that it matters, that, you know, um, it's something that, I don't have a choice in. And so you can either think about it negatively and really dwell on all of that, which sometimes I do, and it's a really bad spiral, or you can look at the positives and, you know, the babies that you're helping and the families that you're helping and the impact that it's making. And that's really where I try to focus.
I love that. Thank you for sharing that story too. It's things like that that I can imagine really help you keep going. I can't imagine, just taking this, negative experience kind of thing that you were handed and really turning it into something that is positive and benefiting so many people, especially this vulnerable population of infants, right? Because we know how valuable human milk is for human babies. And it's just an incredible story. I really want to dive into some of the logistics with you. Let's get into some equipment, pumps, the technicalities of all that. Can you tell us like what you use, what you've tried over the years, what's worked the best for you in some of the equipment that you found?
Yes. So I think we've had a conversation before where I'm just like, I really like all of the equipment. It's so fun. And I also just love seeing how everything has developed over the years. Where I
Mm-hmm.
started out, with a huge clunky Medela that was honestly awful and the wrong flange size. And I don't know how I survived. I don't know how I still have nipples after that, like, horrible learning curve experience with no education out there on, pumping or flange sizing or nothing at that time. That was 8 years ago. Um, to now where there's just so many like new options that are out there for moms. And I am just so happy that the like lactation world as a whole is kind of moving forward to support the working mom, to support moms on the go, to accommodate, our lifestyles and whatnot. So I like to say that I own basically most any pump out there, and I try them all. I give them a good shot, and I compare them and kind of just geek out in. I have an extra bedroom in my house, and it's just filled with like pumps and equipment, and I like to think of it as Legos for moms, where I'm
Yeah,
just
that's
like
funny.
packing all of the different parts together and like seeing what's compatible and whatnot. Um, and actually, after I had a donation story that kind of went viral, which is what kind of like started all of the documentary exposure that you had mentioned, like all of that kind of stuff. I had a story on breastfeeding mama talk go viral and then kind of like expanded from there. And I kept getting a lot of messages from moms reaching out to me and saying like, they need help. They need help with either like milk donation or milk supply or what to get or what to give as a gift kind of thing. And I was just like beyond inundated. And I felt like I was repeating myself a lot with, all of these different messages. I started making like canned responses. And then I
Totally.
was like,
Yep.
I don't like, I don't, but I didn't feel good about it. It felt so, even though it was a really nice canned response, I was like, I can't do this. And I was encouraged to kind of like open up a public page. And so I did, and it's called the 1 ounce at a time, on social media platforms. And from there, like usually on the daily, I would get on and do live videos about just anything. I might do it while I'm washing all my pump parts and everything because it has to get done. And sometimes I spend maybe 2 hours psyching myself up to just do it. And I know that that's relatable to a lot of pumping moms, whether that's like psyching yourself up to pump or to do the dishes
Yeah.
or, that sort of thing. So I was just like, well, I'll get on a live video and chat with moms while I do this. So I did that. I started sharing about, everything I was trying. I shared about my story. I shared about, how to increase supply. I had done tons of research, and because of that, I have ADHD, so I hyper focused on it.
Sure.
And because of that, I was just like, I have to share all of this knowledge. I just like I can't gatekeep this. Everybody needs to know. And I started learning about like flange sizing and no education out there. And I put together like a flange sizing program where I had sized over like 10,000 moms. It's closed down right now because I went off of social media throughout the pandemic, kind of just dealing with all of like my miscarriages.
Yeah.
But prior to that, like sizing moms and helping them with their supply and sharing like what I personally felt, just, my opinions about products. And I was very real, very raw, could not be paid to say something could not be bought to give a review or some fake post or that sort of thing. I showed up very authentically on my platforms, and came across the pump that I think everyone knows that I use, the BabyBuddha pump primarily.
Yeah.
That is definitely my go-to. Prior to that, I had been using the Medela Symphony and the Spectra S1, because there were no good portable options a couple of years ago. They seem to be popping up a lot, and I've got whenever they launch, I have to try them. Sometimes the companies will reach out to me before they even launch, and they're like, "Hey, can we send you this to try it, and let us know. You don't have to do anything. Just you give us a thumbs up or a thumbs down. That's it. Just let us know." So I have fun trying all of the different things and whatnot. But when I was doing more active on 1 ounce at a time, the company owner of BabyBuddha reached out to me and sent me this pump. And again, like prior, no mobile option out there was good. They all sucked, and not in a good way. So I kind of brushed it off just because of my disappointment. I was like, I'm not going to get my hopes up for a mobile option. I'm just going to have this ball and chain Spectra forever, I guess. But when I finally tried it, I was blown away, and I sent 50 messages to the owner, and he was up at the time. I think he lives on the East Coast, and answered. I was just like, whoa, it's 11 o'clock at night. I'm doing a pumping session with this pump, and I love it. It was, I had never emptied so quickly. I had never I was just like, oh my gosh, I can do things, and I can empty quicker. I was just like, it was revolutionizing for me. It was game changing. It really just gave me a lot of my freedom back. And it was the first pump that I had actually shared on 1 ounce at a time that I actually loved, that I was just blown away by, because I would talk about, any and every pump, and this one was just different. It was such a game changer. So after that, I was onboarded into the company, and I think I've been with them for 5 years now.
Okay.
But I started with I answered emails, and I did lactation services for them, and got on FaceTimes with moms, and did troubleshooting with the pump and whatnot. And then I started diving into the inner workings of the pump, and how things, all about it, the circuit board, everything, and started learning how to customize it a little bit better. One of the things that I really loved and appreciated at the time was, because I was so tuned in to flange sizing, I knew what products worked for my body, and I knew what I needed, and it was not going to be their components. And right off the bat, I let the company know that I cannot, I can, say that your pump is great, but it's also not going to work for every mom, first and foremost, but also your components are definitely not going to work for every mom. And I very quickly, showed the company all of these hacks that you could do with it. They didn't make their tubing proprietary. It was easy to kind of pull apart and plug into other components and add backflow protection and whatnot. And all of the graphics that you see on the BabyBuddha website, I made those, and I'm making a brand new set, because there's so many new toys out on the market now.
I know.
So once a mom figures out what works for her body, what's the proper size, what's the proper shape, the proper tunnel, the proper cushion, the proper whatever you need, then using that to then hack to the BabyBuddha pump, so that you've got a powerhouse pump, you've got the right size flange for your body, and you can be on the go. And it's like a dynamic duo, flange size and a powerhouse pump, dynamic duo right there. So I was just like, let's revolutionize the pump world. Let's change things up, because, I get it. It's a company. You want to sell things. You want to, sell your components and that sort of thing. But really what you've got here is an incredible pump, and no other pump company is offering the ability, publicly or whatnot. Because I mean, of course, moms will hack whatever they want and make it work or whatnot with any pump, but no other pump company is out there saying like, no, we need you to have a proper fit. It's just as important as a proper size shoe for a specific sport or activity. Size matters. Size really matters.
Mm-hmm.
So we were the pump company that then was like, you use what you want, you need what fits you with our pump, and we will help make that happen. And I was just so happy about that, because no other pump company had done that. And I just really appreciated the constant like desire to support moms with what they need, how they need it, um, with a pump. So that was like one of the very first things that I did with the company. And now like I get to dive into, product development and design and all of the new fun things, coming out and whatnot. And because I'm still pumping and because I dabble in all of the little things, it's really amazing to be able to be working with a team and a company that is there to just support moms from day one or before, and really set them up for success and want them to be successful and not for return revenue. It's very important to us to support the moms with what they need. And sometimes that's not our pump, but we will help you find what you do need.
Yeah, I've noticed the longer I've been in this space, the more companies I've talked to, and just like you, companies that reach out to me too and say, "Hey, we're launching a new pump. Can you have a look?" and things like that. And it's always really fun for me to talk to different companies. And I've talked with the BabyBuddha people as well. And you can tell when you talk with a company that really has the mother's interest at heart. Now, it's a company too. Like you all have to make money and we have to sell products, but some companies don't really care about the product as long as they sell. And they know that the better product they make, the more they're likely to sell. But also you can just sell whatever. Like there's not a lot of regulation in the breast pump space. And so we're seeing a lot of companies like yours who really are doing the best for the moms and working that way. We're also seeing a lot of companies that are not, that are really capitalizing on the multi-billion-dollar industry that is breast pumps in the global market. And so, but I have been really impressed with your company and the drive there too. I actually just did a recent talk for the Gold Lactation on breast pump science and talked a little bit in there about parts hacking and how that does affect the performance of a pump when you have different parts with it that it wasn't intended to be. And I will say that you guys are one of the only companies that is publicly releasing information and kind of your stamp of approval, if you will, on these products that are not BabyBuddha. We didn't make these. But we've tested them or we've adapted them and we are comfortable with that. And so I think that's really, really cool that it's not all about, hey, we got to sell pumps, sell everything us. It's really like, how do we make this the best for moms? Oh yeah. And we also have a great product that can help you too. So it was really cool to hear your perspective from inside the company on that as well.
Yeah. And when I onboarded with BabyBuddha, I was so adamant about remaining authentic. I wanted to continue what I was doing, like on my social media platforms, the 1 ounce at a time ones. I was very adamant about, I cannot be bought. Even if I work for this company, I still need to have freedom of speech. I still need to have the ability to be honest. And that was received very well and it like welcomed. I did remain an independent contractor with the company in order to be able to have that complete freedom. But honestly, what that did at first was just allow for more learning and development and growth within the BabyBuddha company, because I was allowed to have these very strong opinions and knowing what would work, what doesn't, what moms need, what moms don't need. And I think that like really moved forward, like innovation and change within the company to really support moms. So I think just a year ago, I then onboarded to an actual employee now. But my contract even says that I cannot be bought. I can say what I want. And I just really love this company. I really love that I have such a strong voice and can get it out there, because my bottom line is pumping sucks and moms need support, and moms, it's isolating, it's hard, it's depressing. Everyone's like, you love your journey, and I say that all the time as well. And you know um you know every drop counts, everything matters and whatnot, but it's very real to have strong emotions, or like the hormone fluctuations, or postpartum depression, or any number of things going on, that just make it so hard and isolating and intimidating. And I went through that, and it is devastating. And I don't want moms to feel that. I don't want moms to be struggling as hard as I did. There's no reason for that. And the only thing that's going to change that is getting actual support out there, getting actual education out there, getting, you talk about your program and investing into yourself as a working mom. I can't recommend that highly enough. Don't spend all of your money on all of these different products and whatnot just to try it, or fall for like susceptible like marketing strategy, like all of that kind of stuff. Like, invest into your education, like decide what your breastfeeding goals are going to be. Get that motivation, get that determination, invest into yourself, invest into the education of it, and then start learning about the products, or comparing things, or find someone who you trust, that's putting recommendations out there maybe, and or join like pump swap groups. Like, a pump might not work for you, you might be able to trade it with somebody else type thing. Or your local buy nothing groups. I see pumps on there all the time and whatnot. But really, we need more support out there. We need more conversations about this, about all of it: pumping in the workplace, breastfeeding in public, milk donation, especially with the formula shortage and all of that kind of stuff. Like, this is not taboo. We need to stop. And this is very real life. I don't think I would have very much to talk about if I didn't, my whole life is just surrounded by pumping and milk and babies and all, and products, and trying all these things. And I don't, not by choice again, because hyper-lactation, but, it's very much a part of my life. And if I think if I wasn't able to be as transparent or authentic, even on my own personal, like private social media pages, I wouldn't have anything to talk about, And this is so important to me. It's so important to many. And we don't need to hide it. We don't need to be ashamed. We don't need to, it's not taboo. Let's break the norms. Let's, free the nipple, all of the things. Because it's very normal. It's just real life. My normal, your normal, so.
It's so interesting to hear you talk about your voice now and how passionate you are about supporting people in this space, but also to hear you describe yourself before this started. I just want you to know how impressed I am with you as a person, and I didn't know you back then, but just the way that you have grown and really come into a space being raised so conservatively and really not even being comfortable talking with a professional about what's happening to your body, to now just being so open and transparent and giving support and guidance and help to a very vulnerable population that probably feel a little bit like you did back then, where I don't know what's normal. I want to say how impressed I am with you as a person. I mean, your donations and your things that you've done in your career and stuff are so impressive, but even just to hear you talk about how much you've grown in your voice and in your passions is really inspiring to listen to as well.
Thank you. It has definitely been a journey, a night and day journey from then till now. But again, like all of this journey, all of this experience has then turned around, and I have been able to, because I've experienced so many different things, I've then been able to support so many different moms in different situations, or make those connections along the way with other professionals like yourself or any number of individuals out there that have the same goal that I do, that just want to support moms, and get them connected if it's something I'm not familiar with. Like I know about nursing, for example. I know about latching, proper latch, like all of that kind of stuff, but it's just not my specialty, and I'm not the best voice for that. I could help in a pinch, but I will be more than happy to get you connected with someone who is very passionate and experienced in that specific aspect. But anything pumping, especially flanges, like come my way, happy to help. Or milk donation, it's normal. It is okay to share your milk. You don't have to be afraid. Get to know your donor. Ask the right questions. Get labs done. Go on like play dates, sort of thing. Build your community, because it does. It takes, that saying, it takes a village, and it's no different when it comes to breast milk and that whole realm of things. So, yeah.
That's beautiful. I was going to ask you if there was anything else you wanted to share, but you kind of just wrapped it up all so nicely there for us with that last statement. But is there anything else you want to share? Just any encouragement or tips for moms, or any information about your company, what you guys are doing? I'd love any final thoughts here as we wrap up.
Yeah, I would just say, like, if any mom has any questions or anything, like about, the BabyBuddha pump, or questions for me, like if you're listening to this episode and maybe you think you have hyperlactation syndrome and there's just not a lot out there, like reach out to BabyBuddha and ask to be connected with me, because if you are experiencing that, I'm going to say that you're alone. Your healthcare professionals don't know what you're going through or how to support it. And I would love to connect with you to offer any kind of support to you. But again, like if anyone has any questions about pumps or products or anything like that, you can reach out to BabyBuddha, or you can reach out to me at Elisabeth at babybuddhaproducts.com. Happy to help and assist there. And then just as far as like some advice or whatnot to put out there, again, like don't compare your journey to somebody else's, and especially not to someone, or what you see on social media, like most especially what you see on social media. I live it myself, having been on social media. There's a public persona, essentially, and then a private one. And I would say that I hid a lot of just more of the downs to hyperlactation or motherhood in general. And I wouldn't do that today. I would definitely be way more transparent and just be like, no, I have postpartum depression and I need help, because, that is critical. It's important. And you shouldn't feel embarrassed. You shouldn't feel that you don't deserve help or support. You very much do. Everyone very much does. And don't compare your journey to someone else's. And every drop matters. Your goals matter. What you want for yourself and your baby matters. And I do tell moms to love your journey, no matter what it looks like, no matter if it's drops or inducing lactation to hyperlactation. It's all going to be different. It's all going to be unique, and it's going to be your journey. So love it as it is.
That's beautiful. And I think you're a wonderful example of, like, everyone dreams of so much milk, right? But it definitely comes with a lot of difficulties, and you've been through a lot. Thank you so much for sharing your time and your story with us today. I know you've got a house full of little ones and some pumping to probably get back to, but I so appreciate you taking the time to share and just give your perspective on the world. It's been really inspiring to listen to your story and all the things that you're doing. There will be a bunch of items down in the show notes of this podcast, connecting yourself both with Elisabeth and with myself. If you need help with anything, reach out to one of us. And I think Elisabeth hit on a good point that finding a professional that really specializes in what you're doing can make a big difference. And if it's not either of us, we have a lot of resources. We can point you in the right direction. And so reach out to either of us if we can help. Thanks again, Elisabeth, for joining us today, and we'll talk more soon.
Thank you, Allison.